So, I have been asked how I come to choose the miniatures I choose to paint. There's two things really that come into what I choose. One is straight out aesthetics, what I like the look of, what interests me, what just seems cool. The other more recent factor is that I've been playing a lot of D&D at Wood for Sheep, and because of that I've looked for characters that reflect my characters in the game. So that in and of itself has been a big driving force on what I painted, because if I was doing a rogue, I had to look for a rogue figure. If I had a fighter, look for a fighter figure, ranger, and so on. I've relied very heavily on Reaper miniatures for this. Their bones and metal range is spectacularly cheap and really good value. So that's really been a big driving force on what I've chosen. They also have a big range. I mean, Reaper's been around for 25 years or something, so there's a lot of figures that they have, to choose from in all sorts of different categories. And happily, they've been improving greatly over the last few years. A lot less old school sort of feeling, and a lot more modern designs, and a lot more just interesting and detailed work. A lot of the old figures felt a lot closer to original AD&D, and if you look at the artwork in AD&D, it's shockingly bad. So it's really cool to see them becoming a much more detailed figure-orientated company, and still keep a very competitive price. I mean, this guy was I think he worked out at $275. So that's pretty good. So I needed a new character. This is my fourth. Mike, hi Mike, was doing a game. It was his first GMing, and he wanted to have a crack at that, which is very cool. I thought it was very cool that he was doing that. And we were doing Sunless Citadel, and the requirement was a first level character. So I looked at what I already had, which is a fighter, a ranger, and a rogue. So I decided, let's do something different, not just keep doubling up. I'll keep trying to make something different up until I get to the point where I don't want to play what's there. So I had this guy, and I already had a fighter, and he's not much of a cleric, so I decided to make a paladin, and I went with the Vengeance. Paladin, that's the direction he's going to go in. So I only had, though, about 3 days to paint him in, so I worked pretty flat out on this guy. His base is actually a straight base. It's in direct line with him, and that's not very stable, especially on the tabletop environment. So I had a spare flat base, so I glued it down to that using super glue, because you've got to use super glue with the bones material. Added some putty on either side, and then put in some dirt and rocks, and not quite level, but level-ish with where the actual base is. Because he is a Vengeance Paladin, they can be a little bit more at all costs. They don't have to be like absolutely ridiculous in that direction, but they can be a little bit more tarnished than the devoted ones. So with that in mind, I decided that his armor should reflect that. His armor should be a bit more worn, maybe not rusted, but maybe slightly tarnished. He's no longer that pure sort of soul, but at the same time, and this is why I like him, because he's somewhat conflicted. He is a Vengeance Paladin, but he was knighted. He is Sir Yoriens the Undergrounds, and he took the oath of chivalry, which he has not ignored. So he gets in some situations where he's conflicted with himself between the direction of chivalry and wanting to stop the injustices that he feels are around him. So he's pretty interesting. So I kept him with a green overall sort of motif for his cloth, and the silver I did very bright. It was actually a very bright silver, and then I tarnished it down. This is a lot of thin washes, a lot of just wash over and over. And I used a little bit of green, not too much, because I didn't want green armor, but there's a little bit of green in the armor to tie it in with the overall cloth. The shield's a real focal point on the figure. He's beautifully detailed. For a Bones figure, this is one of their best. Sometimes the detail is soft, but not on this one. This one is great, from the rivets on the shield and on some of his armor to just the pouches. Everything on this figure is solid. His face is great. He's got a beard and everything, and you can clearly see the beard, and it's just, I'm really impressed with this figure. If you're looking for a fighter, it's really, really good. The back is the same. I added some mud. Because he's tarnished, I felt that that's important to do across the whole spectrum. So I added mud and dirt onto his the lower extremities, around his boots and the shins, and then onto his cloak. So he's not a Lancelot shining beacon of Paladinness. He's struggling with, in a fantasy sense, his real world issues. But I can't recommend this figure enough. It's just so good. And for $2.75, it's amazing. I just love the Reaper Bones as a line. There is better figures. There is definitely better figures out there, but not at the price point that these are. You can pay $20 for some figures, and yeah, $20 resin figure is definitely better than any of the Bones, but it's $20. So you have to definitely pick and choose on the high-end figures that you want. But if you need tabletop figures, especially if you're playing D&D and you've got characters and need stuff and things like that, this should be it. But for the price point, and especially for tabletop miniatures, if you're doing D&D, if you're doing any fantasy RPG, you can't beat them. If you need to have 6 skeletons, I think there's a 3-pack skeleton for like $5, I think it is. So you get 2 of them, $10, and you've got a bunch of skeletons. You're going to use skeletons again. So yeah, if you're looking for this sort of stuff, and for learning, I've always said that this is a great learning process. If you want to learn figures, go with the Bones, because you can clean them off if you really need to. You can overpaint them. As long as you don't put too much paint, you can just paint over the stuff that's there. And if you do get to that point where you're like, oh no, I hate this so bad, I've really screwed up, it's a $2.75. You haven't spent $20 on a figure. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of these, and I'm looking forward to doing some more. So this is Sir Yoriens the Undergrands, and I'll actually link what he actually is on Reaper for anyone who's interested in this particular figure. There you go. Thanks for watching.